This episode is brought to you by the Arvada Center. The time is 1959. The place is a seedy bar in Philadelphia. The audience is about to witness one of Billie Holiday's last performances, given 4 months before her death. Lady Day at Emerson's Bar and Grill is a stirring one-woman show about Billie Holiday's life, music, and legacy, playing September 26th through November 2nd at the Arvada Center. Get your tickets now at arvadacenter.org. That's arvadacenter.org. This episode is brought to you by Florence Crittenden Services. Florence Crittenden Services is on a mission to educate, prepare, and empower teen moms and their children. Miles for Moms is FloCrit's family-friendly fall fundraiser, a community-run walk and roll that starts and ends on FloCrit's campus and goes around Houston Lake Park. And it's celebrating its 20th anniversary this year on Saturday, October 4th. Registration is $35 and includes a t-shirt. Sign up or donate to support teen families at FloCrit at flocrit.org/events/miles-4-moms. Today on CityCast Denver. People have been fighting online since the dawn of the internet, but algorithms are more powerful than ever, and our social media silos are leading to deadly consequences. As an investigative reporter who covers crime stories for 9 News every day, Chris Vanderveen spends a lot of time online watching the Outrage machine work. And he's on today to talk about how it's fueling very real divisions among Coloradans and shaping our laws and policies, too. Today is Thursday, September 18th. I'm Bree Davies, and here's what Denver's talking about. Chris Vanderveen, welcome to CityCast Denver.
Thanks for having me. It's good to be here.
So you're the special projects reporter for 9 News now. Do you consider X.com a special project of yours?
No, no. It mostly, and now is a hobby. I mean, the benefits of a website like X for news is really diminished over the years, and so it's a good place to listen. I found, and it's a good place to check yourself in terms of are you hearing things right? It's good for us as journalists to take criticism, although sometimes it obviously can be a little painful. But we should open ourselves up to the public sphere, and I think X is just simply one of those places where we can do that.
Yeah, and we're going to talk a little bit about that because I wanted to talk to you in particular because more than maybe any other reporter in Denver, you're spending a lot of time trying to understand this relationship between our hyperpolarized politics and then, like you said, this sort of hyperpolarized social media. And you really do engage with folks there. Why do you choose to do that?
Because I think it's a form of listening, and sometimes it may not come across that way, but it really is like I want to understand the root of our polarization that exists in this country, and everything's been said that can be said mostly about the polarization in this country. It's no surprise that we're polarized, and we have different opinions. We can see the same blue sky and have 2 different opinions about if it's blue or not. That's where we're at right now. And it on top of it being fascinating as a journalist, it's also really, for lack of a better term, scary. These are tumultuous times that we are in. I think a lot of it is due to social media. I don't think that social media is inherently good. I think there's a lot of things about it that can be good. But I also think that if we talk about the root cause of so much of the polarization, I think social media has a lot of responsibility for that.
Yes, I've been on social media for a very long time, and it's changed so much. But this is really the space that we're talking about, like the virtual space or the space where we're seeing these sorts of things, this conversation happening. And I want to talk about a specific story that you covered so we can kind of make some of these connections. You posted a thread about a man named Vincenzo Moscoso who stabbed someone on a bus here in Denver in 2023. Mm-hmm. Could you give folks the arc of the story who maybe haven't seen anything about this story?
Well, I've been covering this story for a number of years because of it's his relation to parole. Vincenzo Moscoso was on parole. We've been doing a larger scale investigation of parole. But at the time it happened, Vincenzo Moscoso was on parole in 2023, as alleged by the Denver Police Department, and went on a bus on Federal very early in the morning and just went to the back of that bus. Unfortunately, there's surveillance video of this, and went to the back of the bus and stabbed a man in his throat. And he got off the bus. It's a weird caveat to the story. He ended up meeting with his parole officer. After that, the parole officer did not know that he had been potentially involved in this homicide. The parole officer had a brief conversation with him, noted that he was acting strangely, and then, as alleged by the Denver Police Department, killed a woman that was walking close to the Regis campus. So there were 2 homicides in one day. It got a lot of attention here in Denver, as it should have. But as you know, there's a lot of homicides that take place in this country every day that go unnoticed by 99% of the country. And so it got me thinking, when that homicide happened in the back of that bus, there was a new case that happened fairly recently that got a lot of attention before the Charlie Kirk murder, that was gaining a lot of steam online. And it struck me as, I wonder why some stories go viral and some stories don't. And there's much smarter people than me that can probably answer that question. But it struck me, basically the exact same thing happened here in Denver. And it didn't have any traction. It didn't go anywhere. And I think that got me thinking about, okay, well, here's a story that you didn't hear about. And I think it's important to sort of remind people that sometimes the outrage machine is ginning you up. The outrage machine is out there to try to sort of spin certain things certain ways. And look, it doesn't mean that I don't care about the Ukrainian woman that was murdered in the back of a light rail, not that long ago. It certainly, I feel for all victims of homicides, and homicides are horrible, every single one of them. But we definitely in this country have a history of sort of elevating certain homicides over another. And usually, I think it's because somebody's trying to advance a political narrative that's in their best interest. And I think that was happening a few weeks ago. And I think it's interesting how many cases don't get covered.
Yeah. I mean, I was familiar with this story because I live right off of Federal. Mm-hmm. And I know a lot of working folks and students too, that ride that bus every day. And so this was a situation that happened in 2023. Mm-hmm. You sort of brought it back into the fold last week because of this other situation that conservatives online in particular seem to be very outraged about, which you were talking about, which was the murder of a Ukrainian woman. But also there was another story of ours locally that caught folks' attention too. And it was a story about a Weld County sheriff setting someone free who went on to assault multiple people. And then Elon Musk started talking about it. And even Charlie Kirk was posting about it, coincidentally, hours before he was killed. In this bigger conversation, why do you think that story, and not the one you were posting about the 2023 stabbings, became a thing that conservatives online were mad about, this thing in Colorado?
Because I think it's a great question, and I think it sort of fit because it's sometimes, it's like asking why do some ridiculous, stupid videos that maybe my 15-year-old daughter is fascinated with go viral. I don't know. Everyone's sort of like, and trust me, like when you work in a news operation, it's sort of like you see some stories that you do and nobody cares about, and the exact same thing happens 2 days later, and it gets caught up in the outrage gin machine, and so people are sort of outraged about it. That Weld County case that you speak of is an interesting case, and we covered it when a man was released because of competency issues in Weld County, and the Weld County sheriff went online and said, hey, you're not going to believe this, but the court system is going to let this dude go, and you should be really mad about it.
Elon Musk was involved in the conversation about this case in Colorado. Jared Polis had responded to Elon Musk and wrote, quote, absolutely unacceptable. I'm calling on the county attorney and DA to use state law, including CRS Title 25 and Title 27, to ensure he's not at large. This should have happened, all caps, before release, not after. Remove this threat now, exclamation point. Now Jared Polis is weighing in. What did you think about that?
Well, it's interesting. I mean, Jared Polis is the governor, and he's capable of fixing some of these things that other legislators have brought to his attention. I think what he's suggesting, and there's some debate over this, is you can civilly commit somebody to a facility. And that's what happened. If you remember in the Aurora case, and I know we're talking about a lot of cases here, but the Aurora case was the man by the name of Solomon Gallion with the scary
This
mugshot.
was the guy that was on a playground with the terrifying mugshot.
He was if you remember, he was the DA sort of did the same thing down in Arapahoe County, and she said, "Well, we're gonna have to let him go." And then there was the outrage machine that got up going and said, "Well, you're just going to release him to the streets." And they came up with a plan to release him to a sort of a 90-day civil commitment that can be extended in perpetuity. That's not a great solution, by the way, either. But that's what the governor is sort of alluding to. And there's debate, with the Weld County DA and other folks about was that practical in this situation or not. And again, I'm not smart enough to answer that question. But I think that's so the governor weighs in and says, hey, wait a sec, there are options for releasing people to the public, and you don't necessarily have to just release them to the public from jail. There are options. And that's what the governor was sort of moving towards. And then there's that interplay between Elon Musk and Jared Polis, which has happened in the past, by the way. And so it sort of, again, keeps that sort of idea going. But again, I worry a lot about there's a lot of gray area here, and the internet doesn't see gray very well, right? And isn't that part of the problem?
That's kind of what I want to dig into a little bit more is like, we've got Elon Musk talking to our governor on Twitter or X about something that happened here in Colorado. What is that? I guess, how do you see social media in this? Because again, this is one of dozens of cases you've probably seen covered or not covered in the last, 5 years.
I think what's fascinating about the social media phenomenon is that usually by the time it sort of rises to the ranks of that, you're seeing a really small sliver of the story. So you're not seeing what happened before. You're not going to see what happened. There's not a lot of context. There's not a lot. It's sort of like, this is either the world's worst decision that's ever been made, or this is the best thing that's ever happened. And there's not a lot. And that's, I think, the thing that concerns me most about how the conversations take place online is that we are not having that discussion in the middle. We're seeing that sliver. So it's like, holy cow, that guy looks bad. Why is he near kids? Oh my God, he's getting released to the public. This is terrible. I need to be angry. And like, if that's all that's true, you should be angry. But what we're not getting is, okay, well, there's some complexity to the story here that you do need to understand. And I don't want to excuse like the actions of politicians because of complexity, because a lot of times they will that's what they'll say. It's like, oh, it's complex. You don't understand it, Chris. You're too stupid. I get that a lot. And so it's like, I don't want to excuse that, but I do think that we are simplifying things that are taking place in the world. And so we're teaching people, I think this is one of the really big problems of existing online, is that we're teaching people that solutions can be really, really simple. Because if the problem itself is simple, oh, you're just going to release this guy to the public, well, then the solution must be simple as well. And there's a real problem, and I think politics in the last 10 to 20 years has been dominated by those sort of very simplistic solutions. If we would just do this, that would be fixed. And this is where I fault the media. I fault us. Like we've simplified discussions, and I hope that we're capable of having those difficult discussions that don't often exist online.
I'm also thinking about Polis weighing in on one case, right? Imagine being someone whose family member was horrifically murdered in some way and never got any attention, let alone from the governor. I wonder, do you think Polis is taking a risk by engaging on an issue online with a bunch of outraged people?
Yeah, I mean, yes and no. I mean, obviously, I think Polis isn't where you don't get to where Polis is at without being somewhat politically savvy. I think he's very politically savvy. But at the same time, yeah, whenever you dip your toe into the social media pool, you run the risk of, I can't believe he said what he did, and then Elon Musk sort of, and then it goes from Elon Musk to Fox News and Fox News to Newsmax, and then boom, all of a sudden in that echo chamber, it's like, can you believe what happened? Sure. I've been the subject of the outrage machine from time to time, and it's not fun. But at the same time, you just sort of got so yes, is it risky for the government to do that? Yes. Why is he doing that? I don't know. Like, if I get in the head of Jared Polis, I would understand a million more things better. But you bring up a really good, interesting point. Like, we have been struggling to get an interview with Jared Polis for months on the parole issue. He's got a real big problem with his parole system right now. And he defers all questions to the Department of Corrections, of which he's the boss of the Department of Corrections. So I know I talked to a lot of families of people who have been murdered. Sadly, that's part of my job. And so they're furious at the system. And when they see Governor weigh in on one thing, I can't believe that they don't think, well, why doesn't he weigh in on my loved one's case?
I'm also just thinking that he was responding to Elon Musk. And again, like you were saying, the outrage machine, the silos, the echo chambers, sometimes these situations happen, say, on a platform like Twitter that's kind of been dominated by conservatives now. It's like, are liberals even noticing that this is happening? You know what I mean?
Well, I mean, the argument can be made, and I think this is true with Polis, is that he has always tried to make inroads. Why does he have those discussions with RFK Jr.? Why does he have the discussions with Elon? I think he's trying to branch out. Usually that's because somebody has future political aspirations, and we'd have to get into that, but that's usually the case. And so I think, and plus sometimes, and I admit I'm guilty of this too, there's just some pride involved where you just be like, I need to answer this. And like the biggest lesson for all of us is that, like, especially over the last week, with so many people getting into trouble online, is that sometimes the world doesn't need to hear your opinion all the time. And that's a lesson for me too. Like, it's like, sometimes it's okay to just be mad and not tell the world that you're mad. Because, oftentimes when we're mad, I know this now, sometimes when you're mad, you don't make the best decisions in life, right? So.
This episode is brought to you by the Denver Botanic Gardens Chatfield Farms. Fall is almost here, and the corn maze at Chatfield Farms opens September 19th, running Fridays, Saturdays, and Sundays. This 7-acre corn maze features a Birds of Prey theme and a 15-foot tall bridge where you can view the action from above. I did not know the joy of a corn maze until I took Montgomery and Juniper last year to the corn maze, so I think they're going to be so stoked for the corn maze. Also, seeing them from above is like the cutest thing I've ever thought of. Seeing Juniper's little ponytail just wandering through. There's also a mini maze available for kids under 10, and barrel train rides for kiddos are included in your ticket. Plus, on Saturday, September 20th, kick off the fall season at Hop Festival, Chatfield Farms' very own beer fest. Hop Festival is an add-on to your corn maze ticket on September 20th. Tickets must be purchased in advance at botanicgardens.org. For tickets and more information, visit botanicgardens.org. This episode is brought to you by Denver Health. When someone you love brings home a new baby, what might feel like a small gesture from you can mean the world to the parents. Denver Health, in partnership with Family Connects, offers free in-home nurse visits for parents of new babies born at Denver Health. It's just one more way Denver Health shows up for families when they need it most. When I had Montgomery, tried to stay in the hospital for as long as humanly possible because I was afraid to go home with the baby by myself and my husband. And then finally Greg was like, we've been here for like 5 days. Like, we should probably go home. For more information, visit denverhealth.org/familyconnects. That's denverhealth.org/familyconnects. I was terrified to go home because you're like being sent home with the hardest job you've ever had and you don't have any experience doing it. Denver Health is with you for life's journey. This episode is brought to you by Window Nation. It's September, cooler weather's on the way, and if your windows are drafty or leaky, now's the time to act. Replace your old or builder-grade windows with custom-built, high-quality windows from Window Nation. Window Nation measures 3 times to ensure your windows fit perfectly and keep you and your home comfortable year-round. Oh, my kitchen window that my husband actually accidentally broke one of the panes out while installing a new electrical panel on the back of the house. That's a story for another day, but the window still needs to be replaced because cooking without being able to open your windows is not fun. Plus, put zero down, make zero payments, and pay zero interest for 2 years. That's right, you could pay nothing until 2027. Hurry, the Buy Two Windows Get Two free sale ends September 30th. Don't miss out. This is Window Nation's most popular deal. Schedule a fast, free estimate now with Window Nation at windownation.com. That's windownation.com. So just thinking about some of the recent online conversation you were having about selective outrage, and I was looking through the replies, and there's a lot of folks who present as conservative leaning who are just like, Colorado's in the toilet. This is the problem. And I wonder, what did this whole situation tell you like about the role of online outrage, especially conservative online outrage in Colorado right now?
Well, there is a lot of outrage, and I want to be cautious because I don't think all outrage it should be tossed aside as just like, well, you're just outraged because you're amplifying a political point. I think sometimes buried within the outrage there are valid measures, but it's like, I think what's happening with outrage online is that we are continuing to live in two worlds, and that's honestly when we talked at the beginning about why I do this and stay online, because I'm fascinated by the two worlds that exist. There's one world that sees everything through one lens, and there's another world, and it's amazing how the viewpoints are very, very different. So we can. I'm born and raised in Denver. I went to Thomas Jefferson High School. I went to CU for college. I'm from here, and so I have that historical perspective. Of like, I remind people all the time, the crime rate in Denver was actually highest when I was in high school, in the 90s, in the early 90s. Right? Same. And people are like, oh my God, that's not true. It's the worst it's ever been, because I saw on my Nextdoor page last night that somebody broke into Jill and Joe's garage and stole a bike. It's never been this bad. I'm like, it actually has. And I think it doesn't diminish what happened to Jill and Joe's bike. That's still bad. Bikes shouldn't be stolen. Nothing should be stolen. But it does limit you from adding perspective to it. And like, it's amazing. And I don't think it's good. I don't think this is good because I always say, like, I talk about blue sky. People can go out and say, see the blue. I can go out and say, hey, you know what? There's a blue sky today, and there's some clouds in the sky, and somebody be like, Chris, you're an idiot. You work for 9 News. Nothing you say is true. I go, oh.
I actually saw an exchange like this in one of your tweets where it was just all of a sudden someone just started dogging on Kyle Clark, and I was like, Kyle's not even in this conversation.
But that's the reality. It's like,
that's just what happens. Yeah.
People associate 9 News a lot with Kyle. I know Kyle. I think Kyle's great. But it's just this weird, it's now, we're now at the point where I can report that it's 70 degrees outside or whatever, that's something provable. And then instantly in the comments, they'll be like, don't trust anything that 9 News says. They lie about it.
Yes.
I'm not lying about this. I swear. And like, I don't lie for a living. I mean, I've been doing this for a long time. I really, really, like, lying is the worst thing you can do as a journalist. I don't lie. Like, that's just not me. But it doesn't.
But we're not. I think we're not thought of as people, though. Sometimes, you know what I mean. We're just like I was gonna say that's just like everybody online is. We don't actually see each other as people, whether we're reporters or whatever.
I told my daughter this because like I'm not really great in the car. And I get mad a lot in the car. It's not something I'm proud about. But like I drive Colfax every day to get my daughter to school, and it's a terrible road to go on right now because there's so much construction going on.
Yes.
And I yell a lot. And I said, being online, being in social media, especially particularly when you're anonymous, is like being in a car all the time, and just the ability to just yell at people all you want because you don't have to face them. It's a lot easier to yell at somebody if I'm just at Chris Vanderveen on X. Like, it's super easy to yell at me because like I don't know who Joe Bob 4081906 is. And so like, great, have fun. But it's this weird phenomenon where people can just say the most vile things. They would never say it in
to your
person.
face. Absolutely.
That's a problem.
So just really quick before we go, I just want to think about the bigger picture here because again, someone like Jared Polis weighing in online, he's our governor. I mean, do you think this kind of outrage that we have been seeing online over the last few years is shaping policy outcomes or could be shaping policy outcomes more in the future? Like, is this part of that? Is that where we maybe might see some outcomes from our outrage?
Yes. And that's not a great thing. Because the idea of free speech is that you go on the soapbox and you tell the world what you think, and then somebody gets to tell you, hey, Chris, you're an idiot, and that this is an idea. The outrage machine online doesn't work that way. And because of that, we get really bad policy that's formulated on this simplistic view of how the world works. And I think that is a really big danger moving forward, particularly for politicians. As we become more and more polarized, and as state legislatures like in Colorado that used to be like different than DC, like there would be different discussions. It wasn't that long ago, 10 years ago, we would have very Colorado specific discussions about what's going on in Colorado kind of thing. We don't have that anymore. It's now dominated by national politics. And I really worry about that, is that our ability to solve, we got some big problems in this country, and our ability to solve those problems, if we're just relying on outrage to shape policy, man, that's a bad place. That's a bad place to go.
But I could see someone saying, hey, but the internet has democratized this conversation in that Joe Blow from wherever, rural wherever, does have the ability to have a space to say, hey, Governor Polis, this is the issue in my community, or this is what I'm really mad about. So I could see the argument being like, well, maybe it could shape our policy for the better because everybody gets a space to talk.
That's true if we didn't live in a world of social media algorithms that are not tuned to doing that. And I think that's the problem. Yes, we have democratized the ability to speak up, and that's a good thing. But at the same time, we are now subject to the algorithms of social media companies that know that what works, what keeps you engaged. I mean, they know this. Like, what keeps you engaged online more? I feel good. That's a real good feel-good story. I have nothing to add to that. Or I can't believe that happened, so now I'm going to engage more. And once you realize that we are the product on social media, you start to realize the longer I'm on, sometimes the worse I feel. That's not healthy, but that's what they want. They want to do everything they can to keep you on that page.
Yeah, and I also just think you're speaking to something that we're just now having real conversations about, which is algorithms have changed everything. We are not in a chronological timeline. We are not just seeing our friends anymore. We're fighting with corporations. Again, like you said, we are the product. We provide the information, and it has drastically changed how we interact, not only online, but in person. But I'm just glad we're actually talking about it now. Like, this isn't just our fault. Like, our brains are supposed to work a certain way, and social media companies figured that out.
But that's the thing is this is with social science, as human behavior is something that's been studied for a long time. And history has shown us that when people get mad about something, oftentimes they're not thinking rationally. There's loads of examples in history where people got really mad at something and then did something horrible. Mad is something that can be utilized by the powers that be to sort of influence the behavior that they want. And I think when it comes down to it, there are people who want us mad all the time. And think about that. What does that say about where we're going? And what does it say about our ability to turn it off for a moment? Take a break. And I need lessons in that as much as anybody.
I was just going to say, I feel like you've posted about this before as kind of get outside, get offline, but also you very much operate online.
Yeah. But it's like people always say don't you have a job? And I'm like, yeah, I do.
I'm doing it right now.
And and by the way, when you get outraged about competency issues, I did that story 8 months ago, you didn't share it, you didn't pay attention to it. This is, my day job is an investigative reporter for 9 News. My day job is not to sort of like troll people online on Twitter. I'm interested in the conversation. I think it makes me a better reporter to engage in the conversation and to hear things that sometimes I don't like. That's important for reporters. We don't want to just be filled in our own echo chambers. But at the same time, like, I am an investigative reporter by trade. I am currently investigating the parole system in Colorado. I've built up a lot of knowledge about that. And that's where I'm targeting. That's my day job.
Well, Chris, thank you so much for joining me. This was really interesting.
Thank you. And thanks for having this discussion, because we don't operate in the gray as much as we should.
That's all for today here on CityCast Denver. If you enjoyed this show, why don't you take a minute to tell Elon Musk about us? Rate the show wherever you get your podcasts and subscribe to our morning newsletter and learn more about us at denver.citycast.fm. And hey, thanks to our new neighbors, Mary Allison P. and Stacy H., who just joined our membership program. You can support this show and get great perks by becoming a CityCast Denver neighbor today at membership.citycast.fm. We'll be back tomorrow morning with more news from around the city. Bye-bye. I said tell Elon Musk about us. Not that I really want to tell Elon Musk about us, but,